But the UN is calling for essential supplies to be allowed into the territory where the humanitarian situation is deteriorating rapidly as Israel enforces a complete siege. The very latest from right across the region with our international editor Jeremy Bowen in the southern town of Be'eri.
The Israelis have made a lot of progress in getting their troops prepared for that moment if and when, and probably when, the order comes to invade Gaza. The build-up that we're seeing here is certainly the clearest evidence that I've witnessed that Israel is preparing for a ground operation in Gaza. And if you add this to the formation of a war cabinet, you can see the direction they must be going in. Israel's allies are gathering. Antony Blinken, the US Secretary of State, is flying in overnight from Washington. American support includes weapons and moving an aircraft carrier battle group closer to deter Iran's allies in Lebanon from joining the war.
The United States.
The thing that is stopping Lebanon or Hezbollah from joining the Northern Front and opening up a two-front battle for Israel is the same reason why Israel does not feel comfortable. Well, one of the reasons why Israel does not feel comfortable doing a land invasion of Gaza. Obviously, the first and foremost primary reason as to why Israel does not want to invade Gaza by land is because it is incredibly costly from a human point of view. It's much easier to just bomb from afar. What I mean by that is you can bomb from afar, and none of the people that are lobbing missiles or dropping bombs from airplanes get a scratch on them. But if you actually go in to the Gaza Strip, all of a sudden you have a complicated network of tunnels and people that understand the terrain much better than you that are going to literally kill a bunch of Israeli soldiers. So that's why they want to avoid casualties on the IDF side. And part of that is, of course, causing the many casualties on the Palestinian side. So that's number one. Number two, and perhaps more importantly, Israel, despite having a massive military, does not have enough money to keep up 300,000 reservists and keep them paid, keep them fed, keep them ready to fight in fighting position. It's simply not something that Israel is capable of doing, no matter how much money they get from their allies. Yes, I am sure of it. Yes, 100%. It's not just my assessment. It is the assessment of Moody's, as far as I understand it. I saw the fucking article where it was like Moody's warned Israel that their credit score might be. Moody's sends Israel rating warning. Debt insurance costs spike. Moody's sent a warning to Israel on Wednesday, days before a scheduled rating review, that a prolonged war with Hamas could drag down the country's credit score. Surprise attacks by Hamas at the end of the weekend have sparked worst escalation of violence in 50 years and raised questions about not just the humanitarian costs, but the economic toll as well. Moody's, which scheduled to review Israel's A1 stable rating on Friday, said the chance of a downgrade would depend on how the war develops. In the past, Israel's sovereign credit profile has shown resilience to terrorist attacks and military action, a group of the firm's top analysts said in a note. However, a prolonged conflict that durably and significantly impairs economic activity and policymaking would test that resilience. Comments came as traders pushed the cost of insuring Israel's debt against a default to the highest level in nearly a decade. Credit default swaps, as the insurance policies are known, broke through 100 basis point level, meaning they've surged more than 65% since the weekend's attacks. Israel has never been downgraded by any of the three main agencies, S&P Global, Moody's, and Fitch, but analysts highlight that this week's surge in CDS shows traders have concerns that it could now be downgraded. So that's another aspect of the problem. And last but not least, I guess that those are the two main points to consider, but there's also the reality that there could be a multiple front war, which again would be devastating for Israel and its military. So those are factors that are always important to consider. But the very same factors for Lebanon or Hezbollah in general also exist. The economic circumstances of Lebanon is significantly worse than Israel. Okay, it is in a state of dire disrepair, and therefore Hezbollah forces opening up a second front against Israel in northern Israel would be completely and unimaginably awful for the Lebanese economy. All right. And last but not least, it seems like nobody wants to bring Iran into the fold. You have the aircraft carriers that are trucking in the direction of Israel. And part of that is to ensure that there are necessary resources and military support for Israel if Iran, Syria, and Hezbollah join in a war against Israel. Now, while tensions are this high, conflict must be avoided at all costs. The goal should be to prevent unnecessary bloodshed. That is my goal always. I know I said avoid at the top of the hour. That wasn't by design, but yes, I will be serving you a 3-minute ad break now, regardless. So, calmer heads must prevail. Anyway, here's the 3-minute ad break now. It looked like Lebanon, Syria, and Iran were going to get involved. The U.S. wouldn't do a direct intervention. If it looked like Lebanon, Syria, and Iran were going to get involved, the U.S. wouldn't do a direct intervention. Really? Yes. We'll be talking about the white phosphorus in a second. Jasmina666 and Opris and Froxt, thank you for the 5 year subs. I really, really, really hope that Anthony Blinken, and I don't know if this is even possible, but I really hope that they can get the Israeli ground operations to not do what they're trying to do. We'll see. Anthony Blinken wrote and deleted twice tweets that urged Israel to de-escalate, which is so odd. So I don't know. BBC team reporting from Gaza finds dozens of neighbors and friends among the injured.
Hasan Burj, a reporter for BBC Arabic and a resident of Gaza. Here in Al-Shifa hospital, bodies lay everywhere. The injured scream for help. You can never forget these sounds. Among the dead and wounded, my cameraman Mahmoud has seen his friend Malik. Malik has managed to survive, but his family have not.
I don't know. The BBC cameraman found his friends. I don't know if there's TOS in this.
This is my local hospital. Inside are my friends, my neighbors. This is my community. Today has been one of the most difficult days in my career. I have seen things I can't never unsee. This young girl's home was destroyed. Her relatives have been killed and she needs help.
Oh,
my daughter is the same age. I want to give her a hug.
They censor it.
In the chaos, we try to understand what is going on. A mother called Muhammad sits next the bodies of her family.
We were sleeping and they bombarded our house like everyone else. We don't have any resistance fighters in our building. All the building is full of residents. 120 people live there.
The corridors of Al-Shifa hospital are filled with bodies. The morgue can no longer cope. The bodies of the dead have to be laid on the floor outside the hospital entrance. You never want to become the story, yet in my city, I feel helpless as the dead were given no dignity and the injured are left in pain. Adnan Al-Burj, BBC News, Gaza.
Dude, I think I've never seen this reporter before, and I think it's partially because they're just cycling through so many of them because a bunch of them are dying and a bunch of them can't get into Gaza. Like, what the fuck? But here's Anthony Blinken.
Has Israel's back. We have the back of the Israeli people. We have their back today. We'll have it tomorrow. We will have it every day.
James Cleverly, Britain's Foreign Secretary, was already here in Israel at a frontline town near Gaza.
I'm not going to speculate on what support we might want to give. I'm here to find out. I'm here to find out what practical support we can give to Israel.
The Foreign Secretary was hustled into a shelter when the sirens went. Israel has the four-square support of its allies after the massacres perpetrated by Hamas. In their safe rooms, millions of Israelis are praying, waiting, often frightened now that assumptions they had about their safety have crumbled. Their government says what it's doing in Gaza is defending them. But only a few miles from this family in Ashkelon, Israel's onslaught raises questions about whether it's breaking the laws of war. In Gaza, Israel has caused immense damage in only 5 days. International humanitarian law obliges belligerents to protect civilian lives. Israel says all this is legitimate self-defense against Hamas. But it's also cut off supplies of water, food, fuel and power to more than 2 million people and killed hundreds of civilians. Outside the main hospital in Gaza City, Ala Al-Kafane sits with the bodies of his entire close family. They'd moved twice to escape the airstrikes until one hit their borrowed apartment at 4 this morning.
I've lost my father, my brother, my uncle, 2 cousins, 2 other family members, and my pregnant wife. I'm the only survivor.
He said, "We've done nothing." Israel insists Hamas is to blame for the suffering of Palestinians. But accusations that Israel is answering the war crimes of Hamas with ones of its own have started.
Yeah, just simply accusations. Bro, how are you going to say it's accusations when you're showing it? Like, what do you mean? Dude, this kind of coverage is so crazy. I don't know what to say.
Back in Israel, videos are still emerging from the Hamas attack last Saturday. Security cameras showed 2 women trying to escape a Hamas gunman. Somehow he misses them. Armed Israelis arrive, and the man who wanted to murder them either retreats or is killed.
Wait, what?
And at a hospital near Tel Aviv, signs of the tension in Israel. A visiting government minister gets a furious reception. A nurse yells they've been helped by every kind of civilian, but the government has given them nothing. The military buildup might steady Israeli nerves, and the defense minister said tonight, "We will wipe Hamas off the face of the earth." Jeremy Bowen, BBC News, in southern Israel.
Oh, Jesus Christ. That's not what happened. They let the woman run back to her car after IDF forces started firing on the border. I don't know why they're lying. What? I don't know. I don't know what that is.
Well, Palestinian media say the only power plant still operating in the Gaza Strip has now stopped working after running out of fuel. And as we've been hearing, there are more than 200 targets that have been hit by the Israelis in airstrikes overnight. And these images show the level of destruction. This is the Rimal area before the strikes. And this, a satellite image of the same neighborhood, which came through yesterday and has been
Jesus
located.
Fucking Christ. Yo, for those of you who are asking, like, how's there only a couple thousand, or how's there only 1,000 dead? The reason why there's only 1,000 dead, which is ridiculous to say, I can't believe it, but it's 1,000 now, and it's probably going to be higher. And also, there are hundreds of thousands that are displaced. Hundreds of thousands that are displaced right now because they ran away from their homes, knowing full well that it was going to be bombed into oblivion. So they are at They are at different shelters, not bomb shelters specifically, but incorrect. Oh, the latest numbers are 1,537 Palestinians killed and more than 6,000 wounded. Yeah. What's going on with the hostages? They're literally going to kill the hostages too with the bombing? Yes. The displaced right now that are sitting in like UN facilities all around Gaza, the numbers are at like, it was at 200,000 yesterday, so I don't know where it's at now, but no reason to believe that that number has diminished, obviously. It's probably increased dramatically, as a matter of fact. Oh, there it is. 270,000 Palestinians are being sheltered in UN-run shelters right now. That means at least 270,000 that have been displaced. UN workers have died. UN facilities also receive shelling as well. And now the Human Rights Watch has officially confirmed white phosphorus being used in Gaza and in Lebanon. I did not want to go along with this narrative until there was at least some level of confirmation, and that confirmation has come. Israel's use of white phosphorus in military operations in Gaza and Lebanon puts civilians at risk of serious and long-term injuries. Human Rights Watch said today in releasing a question and answer document on white phosphorus that they verified videos taken in Lebanon and Gaza October 10th, 11th, 2023, respectively, showing multiple airbursts of artillery-fired white phosphorus over the Gaza City port and 2 rural locations along the Israel-Lebanon border, and interviewed 2 people who described an attack in Gaza. White phosphorus, which can be used either for marking, signaling, and obscuring, or as a weapon to set fires that burn people and objects, has a significant incendiary effect that can severely burn people and set structures, fields, and other civilian objects in the vicinity on fire. The use of white phosphorus in Gaza, one of the most densely populated areas in the world, magnifies the risk to civilians and violates the international humanitarian law prohibition on putting civilians at unnecessary risk. There's no reason to use white phosphorus considering the heavy bombing campaign because they don't need to use white phosphorus. Anytime the white phosphorus is used in crowded civilian areas, it poses a high risk of excruciating burns and lifelong suffering. Like, they can blow up buildings without it. They've killed so many without it. Just cruel and unusual. Like, the difference between maiming someone and, like, killing them. Yes. So they reviewed 2 videos from October 10th and 2 locations near the Israel-Lebanon border. Each shows 155 millimeter white phosphorus artillery projectiles being used. White phosphorus ignites when exposed to atmospheric oxygen and continues to burn. Yeah, I mean, I wonder if they found a different footage that we hadn't seen, because the footage that you guys kept sending me, some of it was from, I think, Syria. And I believe that they had used white phosphorus in the past. In 2013, in response to a petition to Israel's High Court of Justice regarding the use of white phosphorus in Gaza, the Israeli military stated that it would no longer use white phosphorus in populated areas, except in 2 narrow situations that it revealed only to the justices. In the court's ruling, Justice Edna Arbel said that the conditions would render use of white phosphorus an extreme exception in highly particular circumstances. That's crazy. I wonder what those circumstances were. Although this ruling did not represent an official change in policy, Justice Arbel called on the Israeli military to conduct a thorough and comprehensive examination and adopt a permanent military directive. Attacks using air-delivered incendiary weapons in civilian areas are prohibited under Protocol 3. Protocol 3 applies only to weapons that are primarily designed to set fires or cause burns, and thus some countries believe it excludes certain multi-purpose munitions with incendiary effects, notably those containing white phosphorus. White phosphorus is like, you know, using a flamethrower from a plane. It's cruel and unusual and unnecessary punishment. Türkler her yerde haberin olsun. Gelip biriniz öldürün beni de bitsin artık bu yani mücadele o zaman, ne diyeyim yani. Ne demeye çalışıyorsun? Ne istiyorsun abi benden ya? Anyway. It's like a flamethrower and a weak mustard gas together. UN number of displacements in Gaza is up to 340,000. 220,000 of them are sheltering in 92 UN RWA schools with no access to provide essential supplies. UN humanitarians warn that Gaza is on the brink of running out of food, water, electricity, and critical supplies. Does anyone have that doctor who's in Gaza who was talking to Wolf Blitzer? I think it shows like someone just threatened to kill him. Yeah. Turks are wilding out in the chat still. Talking about how they're everywhere and they will, you know, possibly come for me. The one? No, this is not what I'm looking at. I'm talking about the lady who talked to Wolf Blitzer about bomb shelters. Oh, this is the one.
Breaking news right now. New strikes in Gaza happening at this moment, which raises the question: is an Israeli?
This was, of course, 2 days ago. Now remember, the reason there's a reason why I'm showing this to you.
Imminent. Prime Minister Netanyahu promising to hit Hamas, and I'm quoting him right now, like never before. Israel's defense minister is calling for a complete siege of Gaza, with another top Israeli official saying a ground war there is not off the table. But with some 2 million people crowded together on a 140 square mile piece of land in Gaza, what kind of fighting would unfold in one of the most densely packed areas on earth? Ben Wiedemann is out front in Jerusalem for us. Ben, I know you spent a lot of time reporting from Gaza. You know how difficult that terrain is.
Here.
Saying Ben Wiedemann, thank you very much. And out front now, Dr. Barbara Zinn. She's an American pediatrician who is stuck in Gaza right now. She was there on a medical mission to treat children when Hamas launched its terror attack on Israel. Dr. Zinn, thank you so much for joining us. I know you're hearing these airstrikes that are going on in Gaza right now. It must be very, very scary. What have you been experiencing?
Well, I happened to be walking on the beach I volunteer with the Palestinian Children's Relief Fund and was walking with one of their employees and his daughter on the beach when things started. We went for a walk at about 6, and about 6:30 could see some missiles and the Iron Dome missiles, encountering them. And yeah, since then we were told to stay in the hotel. There's 2 of us here, and we were just waiting to leave, really.
As you know, Israel has been striking various targets in Gaza throughout the day in response to the Hamas terror attacks that have been going on against Israel. You were there on a routine mission, a very important mission to take care of children. Were you prepared at all for this?
Well, whenever you go to Gaza, you always know that there's danger of some violence while you're there. But no, I wasn't prepared for this.
Let us know if you need to go into some sort of a bomb shelter or whatever, because I can hear those explosions going off right near you.
Notice what he said? He said, let us know if you need to go to a bomb shelter. I think that should show you how this works. In his mind, he thinks that Gaza has bomb shelters. She's laughing because you'll see why she's laughing. I mean, she's laughing because she thinks it's fucking hilarious that Wolf Blitzer said, hey, do you need to go to a bomb shelter?
There are no bomb shelters here.
Is there any safe area that you can go to?
Actually, I have a sister-in-law who's Palestinian. She tells me to stay away from the windows, so I'm away from the window, stay by corners of walls that are more fortified, and open your mouth so your eardrums don't break if there's a lot of pressure. So I'm following her advice, and I'm in a safe part of the room.
I don't know if you heard, but the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, doctor, is warning that Israel will go after.
So that's the funniest part. He just doesn't skip a beat. Typical Wolf. Classic. Doesn't skip a beat. And it's like, hey, did you hear? They're doing fucking ethnic cleansing over there. How crazy.
Hamas, and I'm quoting him now, like never before. There's been calls for a complete siege of Gaza. A ground invasion is not off the table either. How worried are you right now for your own safety?
Well, we're doing what we can to try to get evacuated. The organization I volunteer with, Palestinian Children's Relief Fund, is working hard, and we're developing a plan to go down to the Rafah border. And so we're going as fast as we can to enact that.
You're trying to leave that southern border of Gaza into Egypt, is that right?
Right. So we have to get a visa into Egypt, so we're waiting for the permission.
Which Israel bombed in like the first day. Yes, that's the one that got bombed. Yes, you are correct.
From the Egyptian government, our state.
It's just interesting. I wonder why he's not asking her why she's in support of Hamas. You know, working for the Palestinian Children's Relief Fund and all. I wonder. Think about that. Something to consider. Every other person that they've interviewed from Gaza, they hit him with that same line, you know, what's up? Do you support Hamas? Why are you there? Did you condemn Hamas? Yeah.
Department is helping a little with that. And then the biggest concern is that it's about an hour, 45 minutes to an hour to drive from Gaza City down to Rafah. And so the worry is that the Israelis will, you know, bomb the vehicle that we're in. And so we're working on trying to get some cooperation for that.
As far as your discussions with the State Department about evacuating, what are they telling you tonight? What are they saying? Stay put, shelter in place, or try to get into a car and drive to the Rafah border?
That scared the shit out of me.
They're not really giving us advice. They're telling us what's open, and then and then they're going to help us get the visa. But they're not giving us advice on how to get to the border or anything at this point. I don't know that they could. I don't know.
And just before I let you go, Dr. Zind, I know that you've got a lot going on. Just a few moments ago, we heard that huge explosion over your head. What was it like hearing that?
Well, I get startled by them. They're not direct hits to my hotel, and I feel like our hotel is safe. But they're startling, and I'm wary of them, and I just take the precautions that I described before.
Well, Dr. Zind, good luck to you. Thank you so much for joining.
The bravery of her, my Lord. What an incredible person. I mean, seriously, what an incredible human being. Some people, man. Some fucking people.
By our colleagues at BBC Verify, more than 1,000 people are now known to have died, and 250,000 have been forced from their homes. Well, Gaza is, of course, under siege, and communications are extremely difficult. But we can talk now to our correspondent, Rushdie Abu Alouf, who's live in Gaza City for us tonight. Rushdie, just tell us what the last few days have been like, living in an area under siege and under constant bombardment from the air.
Yeah, I can see I have been witnessing the heaviest airstrike in my 20 years covering of this story. It was by far the heaviest. I've been witnessing what the destruction in this Rimmel neighborhood. For a very long time, this neighborhood has been the safe haven for most of the Gaza, and most of the streets in this neighborhood was destroyed. I was among the families who were suffering during the days. But the humanitarian side of the story is moving in a very significant way. When like 2 million people lost the electricity today, we are talking about the essential services such as medical services, water supplies, food supplies are being suspended because of that. The humanitarian corridor for letting food and medicine and fuel into Gaza is a must, is a call from every Palestinian. That's why we understand tonight from a senior Egyptian official that Egypt is working closely with other countries and contacting Hamas and Israel to try to find a draft of 6 hours to allow goods and fuel to come from Egypt into Gaza.
And Rushdie, what about the suggestion, the possibility of a ground invasion? We heard from Jeremy Bowen that the more troops are massing on the border with Gaza across in Israel. How are people feeling about the possibility that there could be a ground invasion?
This is the most worry for the people. People in Gaza fear this because they have lived through ground invasion before. Back in 2014, we have seen Israeli tanks in refugee camp. We are talking about a camp in the north, like 100,000 people live in a very small, tiny piece of land. If people are already exhausted by 3,000 airstrikes and 1,100 people died only from what soldiers and tanks are engaging in street to street and house to house fighting with Hamas in Gaza, with 2 million people living in this tiny piece of land.
Okay, we'll end it there. Rushdie Abdul-Alouf, thank you very much indeed for joining us live from Gaza, where communication